Welcome back to another episode of the Been There Felt That podcast. Today we have a special episode. I have been dying to have this guest on my podcast since the beginning of it, and there's none other than the man himself, my bro, Wells. How you doing, man?
How's it, brother? How's it, Saves? Thank you so much for having me. I know we've been trying to do this for a really, really long time, so it's really great that we get to do this, even though it's not in person, but we figured out a way, so it's all right. It's all good. It's all good.
I
Happy to
love
be
that.
here.
Yeah. If there's a will, there is a way, and I'm just happy we get to do it. Obviously, a lot of change came up that we couldn't be able to film in person, but we found a way. And speaking of change, it's the most consistent thing. And for people that do not know the community that I am in or who I am and what I value, my man here, Wells, is the epitome of change. Sooner or later, you guys will understand why I look up to him and he's a role model. And majority of how I've been inspired to do the things I do comes from him without knowing that he's changed my life. So straight onto it, give us the background. The viewers must be so excited to hear this. And from my excitement, they must be so eager to hear. Tell us more about you, what you've been up to, how you're feeling.
100%. All right, so y'all guys, my full name is Welile Xaba, but obviously everybody calls me Wells. It's just what my parents call me from when I was a youth till now. I'm currently in my third year of law at Tux. Don't know if I want to be a lawyer though. We'll see. We'll figure that out. So I'll finish next year. I also run two businesses, one with my partner and one individually. And yeah, I really just am aiming to be the most successful and best version of myself in the future. I grew up in the UK. I was born there, lived there for 5 years, and then came over to South Africa, and the rest is history, man. The rest is history.
I love it. I love it. What a powerful start. Straight from it, you have been someone that me and some of our peers have really looked up to because you just took life. You knew the direction you wanted to go in. You knew your goals. You knew your dreams. Coming with that, I don't think a lot of people realize that from such a young age. In our 20s, you are someone I believe really shows a good example and sets it, that you back yourself and that you're doing what's best for you. Like you said, you strive for greatness. That journey couldn't have come easy. I know from meeting you from high school to carrying on into the real chapter and the chapters we're going into. How was that growth? Like, what moments made you kind of want to turn around, or were there actually no moments? Just from a young age, you knew what you wanted.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing or the most important thing was like doing quite a bit of self-introspection, of like looking at myself and thinking, what are the things that I'm doing right now and where do I want to be? And do those two things align? I think if there's a disconnect between those two things, then you kind of end up being lost. And that's not a bad thing as well. I think everybody should know that feeling lost is a natural part of life. Like when you really zoom out and look at all of this, like we're on a spinning rock in space. You've heard this before. I'm sure the viewers have as well. Like there's so much unknown. This It's your first time doing all of this, so it's okay to feel that way. But I think it's very important for you to try your best to get yourself out of that state of being lost and figure out what it is that you want to do on the spinning rock in the middle of an endless void of space. Do you know what I mean? So that's kind of like what my motivation was for it was trying to find and align myself with the purpose and chasing after that.
Yeah, I love it. That's straight off the bat, and it's so clear and it's like you said, alignment. And if there is no alignment, you have a disconnection between yourself and why people get lost.
Mm.
But I love the broader scheme when you said we literally are on a spinning rock in the middle of nowhere. Like it's unfathomable. Can't understand it, but you make the most of what you are given. Something I understand and I have tried it and I have failed several times and don't know how you do it. 75-day hard. I hear you are addicted to it. I have seen you push it. You always say, "Who wants to do another one with me?" How is that journey? How did it come about? How you deal with the hard times? Give us the full breakdown.
Yeah. So the reason why I even did it the first time was because in 2023 I went through this like realization or like doing that self-introspection that I mentioned earlier is like realization of like, okay, wait, what is the type of person I want to be? And that's not just mentally, that's not just financially, it's also physically. Like, what do I want my spirit to feel? How do I want to feel when I look at myself in the mirror? Or how do I want to feel health-wise? And then obviously I was doing research on the internet of like challenges and things that you could do that will force you to make that change, like build a foundation for discipline. So fitness in yourself to then spill over and trickle over into the other aspects of your life. And I landed on this 75 hard thing, looked into it quite deeply, looked at who the founder was. It was founded by this guy named Andrew. Frisello, something like that. I forget his name. It was a long time ago. And I tried it the first time. I did it to the T. I completed every single thing. I kept every single rule, and I saw these crazy changes. You know, I saw like my body change, my mentality change, my aspirations and everything. And then from there, I was just like, this is like a canon event in my life. You know, like if I didn't start with that 75 hard, I don't know if I'd be the type of person that I am today, not just physically, but mentally as well. You know, and then of course, when your mental is in check, then like I said, it trickles over into other aspects of your life. If your mental is as strong as it possibly can be, then it makes attacking everything else much easier, you know. So I've done it about 4 times now. The last one that I did was what, like over July. So I did it while I was writing exams actually. It was, yeah, it was tough. But to be completely honest, man, I don't think I'm gonna do it again. Not for a long, long time. I'm tapped out. It's hard. It's very hard. But once you overcome that hard, dude, yeah, you'll come out a different person. I guarantee it. I
It's
guarantee
so
it.
brilliant. I mean, you're doing something that 99% of people wouldn't do in this world. They only think about it and they like the idea of it, but they don't actually do it. They just say, I want to do this, I want to do that. But you took the steps, the discipline, like you said, you had your self-awareness, you took reflective time to understand what you wanted and how you could get there. So with coming up that 75 hard, I'm sure, I mean, I'm even curious. I know life can just be a natural way of changing, but was there a specific thing that made you realize I am not who I want to be? Like a moment where you clicked and you thought, this isn't for me anymore. I need to do something different.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I'll preface this by saying that, like, if this is the type of person that you are, or the person that I'm about to describe, then I don't want you to take that as me diminishing that or saying that you shouldn't be that type of person. But just for me, my realization was that I shouldn't be that type of person. So said, like, you know, like back in the day, I was very much like involved in like the party culture, you know, like drinking. I mean, we've been involved in it since we were like 16, 15 years old, you know, and carrying that over into my 20s, you know, I started to see the way that it was affecting me, like in terms of my schoolwork, in terms of my body, my mentality, my aspirations. You know, I was very much living like on a cloud, you know, like I thought that um maybe subconsciously that like this is what my life was always going to be. You know, I was doing a lot of things. I was drinking a lot. I was smoking a lot of for YouTube purposes, I'll say green leaves. Yeah, I was in a cloud. I was in like this space that wasn't like necessarily the most realistic, you know. And one time when I was under the influence of these green leaves, I had like this really bad experience where I was just thinking about like what would the 4 year old or 5 year old version of myself say if he walked in and saw me like this, you know, physically, mentally doing the things that I was doing? Would he be proud? You know, because we all have this thing when we're kids of being like, oh my God, like 20 year olds, I can't wait to see what I'm like when I'm 20. And the 5 year old version had a version, an older version of himself in his head. And that wasn't the person that I was. And it was kind of like a thing of questioning myself of, am I staying true to the person that I thought I was always going to be, or am I veering off of that path completely and going a completely different and, in my opinion, dangerous route? You know, so kind of having that experience and coming to that realization of the fact that I'm not someone that the younger me would look up to, and I'm him. You know what I mean? I'm the older version of him. If he saw me, like he wouldn't be proud, or he wouldn't even say like I want to be like that guy. He'd look at the next person and say, no, actually, I want to be like that guy. And that actually like hurt. You know, it hurt quite a bit because I was like, okay, shit. Ooh, sorry. I was like, okay, damn. You know, I'm supposed to, I'm supposed to be like the hero to this person. You know, and that's not what I am right now. So that's where I was like, okay, now I need to make a change. And then slowly but surely, day by day, day after day, I decided to make those changes.
And that's a beautiful story. I mean, what you put in your perspective is you are right. A lot of people look at a young age at like a hero, a figure, whether it be your parents, but you have an idea of the person you want to become from, whether it's put onto you as a kid from a movie, from what your parents show you, from examples. And you do get to
100%.
that stage of where you sit there and you sit of yourself of the example of what have I become? What am I becoming? And similar to you, I also have that same, I mean, we met through partying. That is what our life was. That was our way of socializing, communicating, connecting. And just along with you, I agree with you. Anyone that feels they're in that space and they love it and that's who they are, don't deny it. But if there's something eating you inside of realizing that's not what you want to do, don't do it. Do these steps because I guarantee I feel better without it. I feel better pushing a vision of what I want to be. I never wanted to be what I was in high school, but that's just the part of the chapter you have to go with. No one is perfect. But through all that growth and the self changing and the realization, it's hard to be honest with yourself. I think a lot of people struggle to be honest. So how did you come in terms of that? Like, what urged you to be able to be sit with it and not run away from it, not be distracted, like actually find a solution and think, hey, like I have to accept this as reality. You're not making an excuse for yourself. I think people do make excuses for themselves to settle for who they are currently.
Yeah. Um, so after I kind of had that experience of like, comparing myself to the version that my younger self would want, I started like listening to like more podcasts, like I'm sure you've also been through the journey. Like once you're trying to do like self-improvement and self-betterment, the first thing you turn to is a podcast or you asking the internet on 10 habits on how to do A, B, C, and D, and kind of going down that route, I'd say was the thing that helped me with that, like figuring out like what does the version of myself that I want to be engage in? What does he do? What doesn't he do? And yeah, fortunately, I think I landed upon the right podcast, and I think if somebody is watching this as well, this is definitely the right podcast to watch, to see, and get advice and get some sort of engagement with people that are going through something that you're also going through. I don't know if that answers the question.
No, of course, brilliantly. You
Yeah.
took the steps that were necessary, and you are right. I mean, I love to say it. I am a victim to self-help podcasts, but not in a terrible way, in a good way. I am victim to its purpose, and that's why this podcast exists. Something that
Mm,
I battle with
mm.
constantly. I don't know if you do too, with the constant wanting to improve, especially that whole learning era you have before you actually take the action. Do you ever feel like self-improvement becomes a form of pressure on yourself more than it is freedom?
Yo, that is a very real question, Sabes. That is, yeah, I think definitely because when it comes to that self-improvement, you kind of set these standards for yourself of, okay, if I want to self-improve myself, then I need to be like A, B, C, and D. And very oftentimes, if you're trying to self-improve yourself, it means that you're not in the position that you want to be in. So there's a gap that you need to fill. And that's where that pressure comes from because you're engaging in new habits that you've never done before. You're talking to people that you've never spoken to before. You're exercising muscles, verbally, mentally, socially, on how to engage with people that you've never done before. So the pressure for me, like, is definitely in that space between uh, doing or wanting to do the self improvement and achieving the self improvement. That's where the pressure comes from. And I'd say oftentimes than not, it is definitely a pressure thing. But the cool thing about that pressure is that it's self-inflicted, right? Is that there's no other person, hopefully, that is putting that on you to say like you have to do this. Like there's no obligation other than the one that you have to yourself that puts that pressure on you. So you can also like gauge it, and if you set a goal that's unrealistic to you or that you don't think you'll be able to hit, then you are the person that can control it and say like, okay, maybe let me take a step back. Let me not aim to do 200 push-ups a day, but let me aim to do 50. And then from there you build up and you build up. So even though there is that pressure, you are kind of in a fortunate position because you can be the person to control it and how much it affects you.
I'm so grateful you said that because it is a point, people talk about pressure so much and it's a privilege when it is your choice. I'll say two things for everyone that listens, and I know you know this. I know this. You can't change for someone else. It has to be for you,
Mm,
and your choice is your
mm.
decision. If you are changing for someone else, you're changing for the wrong reasons. And like you
Yeah.
said with the pressure, it had me thinking of the question itself. We're grateful for the pressure because, like you said, you're in control. You can control the values you give to it, how much you do, how much you take away. But that pressure ends up giving you freedom. As much as it's not the idea of
Mm.
freedom is there in the change, but the pressure does build the freedom. What's that one thing that they always say? Like a pressure either crushes you or turns you into a diamond. Like that whole
Yeah. Literally exactly
concept.
that. Exactly that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Exactly
with
that.
all
Yeah.
of like, driving to who you're becoming and also who you currently are. Like I know you want more than what you've already achieved and not taking away from what you have achieved or what you are coming. But how do you balance like, okay, I've gotten to this point, I accept who I am, but there is something more that I want. How do you know like when's the right time to pause? When's the right time to continue pushing of growth?
Yo, it's actually funny that you asked that because even when I speak to like some of my the people that I confide in, that's one of the biggest things that I struggle with, is like taking the moment of like acknowledging where I am and the things that I've been able to do, the goals that I've been able to hit, and not always constantly feeling like hitting those goals is a relief thing, but also like enjoying it. You know what I mean? Like, there's many times where like I'll have things that I need to do, and it doesn't have to be anything crazy. Like even completing an assignment, the fact that you've completed that assignment and you know that you've read the hardest that you have, you should be able to celebrate that and not just feel like, oh, whew, I'm just glad it's done. You should be able to take the moment and take in the fact that you were able to complete that thing that you set out to do. But like I was saying, it's something that I do struggle with quite a bit. Like I don't know, I don't know how to, or at least I'm trying to, be able to be satisfied with being in the position that I'm in and not always constantly looking up of like, okay, that's done, on to the next and just go forward. You know what I mean? I feel like it very much takes away the purpose of you even doing those things. If you're not satisfied with it and it's more of a relief thing, then why did you set out to do it in the first place? Do you know what I
Of
mean?
course.
So my advice to people who struggle with that is, um, try put yourself in the moment. Do you know what I mean? And like I was saying earlier, acknowledge what you've done, acknowledge the tiredness that you feel, acknowledge the satisfaction, the relief that you have from achieving those things, and take that as a point for celebration. Don't just look up and say like push it to the side, or diminish it and say like, oh, it's whatever, I had to do that. No, 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 dude, you did something really amazing. It can be big, it can be small, whether you got funding for a company, whether you woke up at 7 o'clock in the morning when you usually wake up at 12 o'clock in the afternoon. Like celebrate the small wins basically.
Yeah, because the
Mm.
small things are what going to add up to the big things. I really like that you said, almost like it's not an obligation. It's something you should be satisfied with, not a relief. Because something that's like a controversial topic is that self-development is an addiction. People constantly want to be doing more because they keep chasing a different version. They accept who they are, then they're like, oh, I can be this. They get that. Then they want something else. I'm gonna be. So it can also be an addiction you kind of got to deal with, and you have to know what you don't want to settle for, which is becomes difficult in the mind. But that also self-growth, I think it's a big belief you'll have as well. It's not always about doing something more. It's also about doing things less. Like it's not always adding habits, it's removing habits too. And you are big and fundamental on that. I've seen the amount that you've cut out and the amount you've placed in. How was that process? How did you kind of create a sheet of this is bad, this is good, this is what I need? Like, how did you go along that?
I think uh, it went back to the whole self introspection thing of like how are the things that I'm engaging in affecting me? Like it's very hard to sit down and make a list of all the habits because sometimes you might be engaging in a habit that you don't know, right? So I think for me it was finding a starting point of like, okay, my body, for example. What are my goals with my body? Do I want to live until I'm 100, or am I cool with kicking the can when I'm 60? Like, what do I want to do? Okay, cool. Am I eating healthy? What does eating healthy entail? Am I drinking too much? Am I indulging too much in other substances that I shouldn't be doing? Things of that nature. So it's like picking a starting point and seeing how all of these things have affected you. Like look at like the timeline of when you started doing the thing to where you are right now, and ask yourself, overall, has that affected me in a positive way or a negative way? And then, of course, it is work. Like it's going to take you some time to do this, and a lot of honesty with yourself, and a lot of self confrontation that you have to do. But I guarantee you, it's very much worth it. But sitting down and saying like, okay, it's affecting me positively or negatively, my relationships, myself, all the spheres of life, you have to kind of take into consideration. And I know, like I say, it can be a taxing task to do, but once you do it, and once you recognize the things that are taking away from your life and not giving to your life, yeah, the growth is literally exponential. It's literally exponential. Yeah.
I think that's where it comes to separation of people, not in a hierarchy type of way, but of people's mindsets, is because
Hmm.
a lot of people also think that the results are going to be instant, that the results are going to come quick, they're going to come easy, that you can half ass the work, you can half put in the time. But it really is, like you said, a lot of effort and a lot of work, and it ends up being a hard process, and life starts feeling heavy because you're doing this and you're doing that. But you can't lose like vision and sight of that main goal, like, the light beyond the mountains. You got to climb to the top to get the best view. How do you kind of push through it? I know discipline and building all of those habits, but how do you still show up for yourself when life feels heavy, whether it's external factors, internal? just feelings, or how do you continue to show up?
Yeah, I think the first word that pops up in bold in my head when you ask that is the word permanent, right? Is you and like we say, prefacing, of course, it's a very difficult thing to do, but it's also a very imperative and important thing for you to do is understanding that all of the things or the way that you're feeling right now doesn't have to be permanent, right? Just because something bad has happened in your life doesn't mean that you need to charge it with your energy and let it grow and grow and grow and grow until it feels like it's permanent or like it's always going to be there in your life. And I understand that like we say, it's a very difficult thing, and there's uh, different degrees that certain things affect us for sure. But I think taking control and not letting other things run your life other than your own mental and the things that you aspire to do, or the person that you want to be, or the things that you believe in, etc. Yeah, I think that's a very powerful thing to do. So it really just comes down to the realization that that state of mind that you're in, negative or positive, even, because even things can be going really good and then they go away. Yeah, that state of mind is not always going to be a permanent. It's not a permanent thing, so don't charge it and treat it as that.
Yeah, it's not the definition or the defining moments of your life. That's not all that you will be or all that you will feel. I love that perspective, because everyone thinks things will be permanent. That when a situation happens, good or bad, that's the best moments or the worst moments or the best feeling, the best prime. I don't believe in a prime. I think we'll forever evolve and grow or go backwards. I think there is no highest points or highest peak in your life. With all your change and your experience, and I find this quite commonly now. I think last week or some time ago, I made a post about, support is free, just supporting people is something that can be given out of goodwill. When you start a change and when you start doing motions in your life to move it to a better way, people often are so hyped and excited for you at the start of it, but then in the middle they kind of fade away, and then when you do it at the end, it's like, wow, dude, how did you do that? Like, you got blessed, like life treated you so well. But no one saw the middle part, no one saw the groundwork, laying the foundation, the hours, the time, what you were doing. But the start and the end, they're both like questioning you. How do you
Yeah.
find that?
Yeah. Yeah, that's actually one of my biggest pet peeves is when someone will coin you as lucky when they weren't there to witness the things that you've done to be in the position that you're in, right? Like it's true. There are some people who are just lucky. The God, whoever, the universe, whoever you believe in, whatever force you believe in, they think that they just granted them that from birth. But also most times it's not, right? You look at all of these successful people now, we're talking strictly financially, all of these successful people, and it's very easy to just say like, oh no, he got lucky, he was in the right place at the right time. But it's like, no, break it down even more. Look at his process. What did he do? Who was he speaking to? How many sleepless nights? How many tears? How much blood? How much sadness, anger? All of these different emotions did he experience to be in that position? And I think for me, the way that I come to terms with it is aligning myself with those people whose stories I do know, whose processes I do know, and understanding that like, okay, this is where I am. I'm in the same position or in the same spot in my life that they were all those years ago. And when those people come around and say to me like, oh, you got lucky, I shouldn't take it as an offensive thing. I should maybe actually instead just confirm it and say like, okay, no, yeah, you're right, I was lucky. You don't have to know. Like, I'm not doing this for you. Like you said, it's not for you, it's not for anyone else, it's for yourself. So I try my best not to take it personally when someone coins my hard work as luck, even though it annoys me quite a bit. But I think, yeah, you really just have to come to that realization that not everyone is going to see the hardships that you go through and the work that you put in. They're only going to see the end results, whether it's people who have already been in your life from the beginning or new people that come in and assume that your life has always been like that. That's just the circles of life. That's just the way life goes, but you can always count on the fact that other people who have worked hard, who are also being coined as lucky, even though they weren't always lucky, will sympathize and empathize with you and align with you. And those are the people you should turn to for any sort of validation or any sort of support that you need. If there's people telling you you're lucky for hard work, fine, cool, whatever. But the people who have done the work will see you for what you're doing and for who you are.
You brought up some great points. I mean, number one, bringing up the not speaking to. I find this one thing where people always ask advice or go to someone and like, oh, how did you get this? How did you do that? But you're not asking them, when you were my age, how did you get to where you are now? You're not thinking of the shoes you'll be put in or the shoes they were in. You're only thinking of their current success, what they are showing you now, and you want to know all the answers, but you're not asking them the right questions of their past and their history and how they achieved it. And then it also walks on to, people attack you and they threaten you in a way of that your life was given this and whatnot. Honestly, to me, I take it as the biggest fuel and the biggest compliment. It means I'm doing something right. You know, it just means that what I'm doing is something that is proving to people it's possible. And because they meet you where they meet themselves, it's not on you. They know their own limitations they're
100. Yeah.
projecting. Yeah. And they project
Literally,
their
I
own
was just about to
limitations.
say. I was literally just about to say that if somebody is looking at you and thinks that it's luck, then that means that they don't see it in themselves, that they can work hard and be in a similar position, whether, like, again, it's all spheres of life, whether it's the emotional intelligence that you've developed over time, the fitness goals that you've hit, the financial goals that you've hit. Like, if they think that you are lucky, then unfortunately they never see in themselves that they can do that. They expect luck to just come around and bless them with it. You know what I mean? And again, and maybe we'll get onto this topic a little bit later. But that's also something that you should be wary of like, who are you surrounding yourself with? Are you surrounding yourself with people who think that all is just la-di-da? Are you surrounded by people who don't acknowledge your strengths and your weaknesses and help you where you fall short and boost you up where you're strong? It's also just making sure that the people you're surrounding yourself with acknowledge the work that you're putting in. Don't let them project their insecurities or their shortcomings onto you. If they're not in the same headspace as you or able to even fathom themselves doing the work that you have, that's not a reflection on you. It's a reflection of themselves, like you said.
And that's such a great point. Like I know it's such a cliche, and I've spoken a lot about it with all my guests, but it's so nice. It's a cliche. Things are cliche because it means it's true. If everyone is saying the same thing, it means it's the truth of, the people you surround yourself with, is your environment, how you grow, how you become rooted. And what's really sad in today's age, and it goes on to the sports as well, people are so quick to tear one another down instead of lifting each other up. People can't celebrate others' successes. They would rather see you fail and feel good about themselves. Like why are the shortcomings more valuable to you than the upliftings of someone else? It's a very harsh world. I blame that on how society's gone, how social media is done, because everyone thinks they have the right or that the life owes them, that the world owes them because other people are doing it. And social media, you've seen someone's highlight reel, you don't know what they do in the background. And yeah, that's just my opinion on that. When that comes to it, I also think people think they're going to be happy with things that other people have. And I believe if you can't be happy without it, you can't be happy with it. If you want that external thing of, oh, I want that body, or I want that chick, I want that car, I want that guy, I want that house. But if you're not happy with who you currently are, that is not going to fulfill you because another problem is going to come your way. You're not going to be able to deal with it just because you think a house is going to fix your problems or because a job's going to fix your problems. You got to be content and okay with sitting by yourself.
100%. 100%. I think that's also something that people need to get used to. I think if you going on this journey of self-improvement or trying to figure out your life, like figure out your shit, you know what I mean? Is don't depend too much on people, like you kind of learn to be alone, and I'm not saying that you have to be, not at all. Like it's important to fill your cup, have different energies around you, but obviously make sure those energies are positive. But still back on the independence thing is be comfortable in your own thoughts. Like you need to learn how to be comfortable in your own head with your own problems and happinesses and sadnesses before you can even look outside to get those things from other places. Because I think that's kind of where you start to get lost, right? Like you mentioned social media. If you're on social media and you're looking at somebody who's in Rome and you're telling yourself that like, yo, I need to go to Rome because I'll be as happy as this person, then to me, and you can correct me if you disagree, but to me that's a sign that that person isn't content in their own head, like you mentioned. Like there's too much noise going on in their own head, or there's something about their own life or about life that they haven't realized that makes them think somebody else's version of life should be theirs, you know. And it spans from everyone, whether it's a friend that you have who has more opportunities than you, or even freaking Drake. Even if it's Drake, like don't look at other people and expect that their version of life will satisfy you. I think that's really what it comes down to.
No, you're right. I completely agree with you because if you are busy so desperately wishing to be in someone else's position, it shows that you're not happy with your position. And I get circumstances are unfortunate. Some people are dealt the wrong hands, but that doesn't make an excuse for behavior and for not taking control of your life. Before we started this, even like we were saying, you got to take life by the horn, steer it in your direction. You got to make the most out of life. Don't let it make the most out of you. And people lose that concept. They just think that things come easily, things come naturally, that they deserve more from it. It complexes the idea to me that, you know, people become so confident and so fearful in this world. And like you are saying, like with the choices and being happy, you choosing which one you want to feed. Do you feed confidence or do you feed fear? They both require faith in something that hasn't happened yet.
Oh, wow. Yes. Yeah, 1000%. I love that. I love that so much. And it really goes back to that thing of like choose the ideas in your head that you want to charge. What's going to fulfill you, what isn't, what's going to take away, what's going to give. Because if you're living your life in fear, like you could, for all you know, Sabian, like I'll use you as an example, just to make this easier. But like you could be the next I don't even know. You could be the next Casey Neistat. If you don't know who that is, he's a YouTube vlogger. Or you could be the next Joe Rogan, right? But your starting points are different. But because your starting point isn't Joe Rogan's starting point, then that's where the fear comes in. And that's where you'll start to think like, okay, no, this is not going to happen, or this is not possible, or this is what could happen. But why are you charging the 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 ideas that aren't even like concrete, that aren't even like tangible? Do you know what I mean? Instead, you should charge the opposite way, charge positively and not negatively. So I love that. I love that idea of confidence and fear, or energies towards something that hasn't happened or that probably won't even happen. Do you know what I mean? I love that. I love that. Yeah.
And also, it takes me back to I watched a podcast with Jay Shetty and Kevin Hart, and he also put it like how you speaking about charging energies. He speaks about monsters that he feeds one, or to get the voice away from the monsters, he has to feed. You have a choice: do you feed like the good monsters or do you feed the bad ones? Which one is going to be stronger? Is the one that you feed your thoughts to the most? And I found it so brilliant because there are voices, and everyone can agree. You have that little voice in your head, and it's up to you whether to listen to it. And sometimes it's a good voice and it's a bad voice. One that calls you out on your bullshit, one that's edging you to go towards the bullshit, and you got to pick and choose. It's no one else to blame but your own thoughts, your own choices, and that's where that self introspection comes in. I don't know if you believe it. I think we often complex things due to the way we feel to make decisions, but it's actually really simple. Like for example, you want to break up with someone because you're just not happy. It is such an easy thing to do, but because of your feelings, you consider their feelings. It's a complicated thing, but it's a simple decision. Your ideas and your thoughts about that.
Hmm. I think, yeah, I kind of agree 100%. Like, because it's kind of a thing of you compartmentalize all of these different things, and once you do, because there's so many involved, like you say, their feelings, your feelings, the effects, what your life will be like after. These are like, there's so many things operating at once, and when you look at each of them individually, they start to stack up. Right. And that's where the fear comes from. And it takes away from doing something, like you say, that is so easy to do, like having a conversation. Like me calling you is such an easy thing for me to do, right? Let's say we were in a relationship, pause, but let's say that we were, right? um, Calling you, picking up the phone, and saying, hey, this is what needs to happen, such an easy task. But because you compartmentalizing all of these crazy things, it's again like that gap of, you just need to take them, put them in one, and have that conversation. So I think, um, I would actually 100% agree with that. But I can also understand and empathize with the fact that it's hard. But it's also a thing of like, again, self introspection. I know I've said it like 6 times already, but what would make you happier? What do you want to stay in that situation and avoid doing the easy thing with hard consequences? Or would you just rather do that and face the consequences? Because again, it's not permanent. Those consequences aren't going to last forever. The heartbreak that you feel, the way that they feel, the effects of what happens after is not going to last for 20 years, right? It's not going to last for 100 years. It's not going to be the thing that defines you, or it shouldn't at least be the thing that defines you and the person that you are. So yeah, it goes back to that thing of permanency, of don't avoid doing easy things, because don't avoid doing hard things because you think that the consequences will be permanent.
As you say that, it's a great thing that I've been thinking about as well. In terms of distraction, like you're saying, don't avoid the hard things and just trying to do the easy things. It's We avoid what's important by excelling at what isn't. Like we see something like, yes, this is the important thing. I have to get this going, but hold up. I'm a bit scared. I'm a bit nervous. Let me go do the unimportant thing. The time you're taking to not do the important thing is such a waste because all the time you're taking avoiding it, you can just do it. And I see this a lot in the
100%.
world. I felt it in myself. I think everyone is guilty of it, procrastination, everything like that. But why do you feel distractions are safer than the solution?
I think it really just comes down to complacency. It's easier to be in that state. You know what I mean? Like, and once you're comfortable in a position, like you're not gonna want to change it. You really aren't. Like if things feel safe, if things feel stagnant, not stagnant, if things feel safe but they feel heartwarming, or they feel like you've gotten used to those kind of things, then it kind of becomes easy to just like sit in that. You know what I mean? And you look at the other things, and those things require work, or require you coming out of that state of comfortability that you're in and adapting to a new one, or not even just becoming uncomfortable from the position that you're currently in. You know, and I think it can very much be like a toxic trait, because you don't know how much progress or how much progression you're stunting in yourself and in your life by being comfortable in these positions, right? So that's not now to say, obviously, if you're looking to buy a house, that's going to make you comfortable. No, like contextualize the stuff of, if you're in a relationship, for example, where you feel loved and whatnot, but the person is taking away from you, or you in a toxic situation, or the person doesn't care for you as much as you care for them, but that isn't enough to make you get out of that comfortability, then there might be a bit of an issue there. But I think it's important to contextualize, of course, this comfortability that we're talking about. But I think it really just comes down to that, of why remain complacent, because of the change in comfortability that could come by changing your circumstance.
Do you think it becomes like a level of showing someone's priorities, what they prioritize for, like you said, in the relationship? I like that. Relationship examples are easy because everyone longs for someone or yearns for, a partner. But, in terms of priorities, are you prioritizing because you feel lonely and this person's in your life? Now you forget to prioritize of your self-respect, your value, your life, that you would let them disrespect you or treat you badly and be toxic. Does it become now your priorities? It used to be a ladder, and now you've kind of shoved one underneath to raise the other one up.
Yeah, for sure. But I think it could also just be a thing of compromising as well, because those priorities can still be the same, and you can very much be aware of it and think like, okay, no, like obviously I know that I shouldn't be doing this, and my happiness, or not being in this toxic situation, for example, is not the priority, but you compromise that because of how much the comfortableness or the comfortability outweighs the priority. Do you know what I mean? So like if you could draw a chart, it would be like, I don't know if this is going to be flipped for you, but it would be like priority, and then the greater than sign or less than sign, and then what did I say? So priority and then compromise. So you'd much rather choose compromising your priorities because of the comfortability than addressing the priority. So I don't think people necessarily like shift them. I think they just compromise themselves and kind of put that at stake, and be like, okay, well, it doesn't matter, because the comfortability that I feel right now is more important than the priority. Do you know what I mean? Yeah,
You're speaking on something really great that makes me think as well. Humans are habitual creatures. We are very predictable, as much as no
indeed.
one likes to accept it. We do rely on a structured base of we do the same things every day. We feel the same thing at a certain time, So I do think it also becomes, like you say, the comfort because you know how good that makes you feel. And I love saying this around all the podcast episodes, and I know I'll sound repetitive in the reels and whatnot comes from this. But we mistake what feels good. We mistake what is good and what feels good. Something can be feeling like you on the best and you life is good, but is it necessarily good for your life? I think that is a big thing that we go ahead and we take away from. I don't know how you feel about that because a lot of it, we've seen it in the party scene as well. People take those moments as I love it and I hate it at the same time. Like, this is the best moment of my life. This is the best thing to happen to me. I feel amazing. But the words you have said then, you are relating to that situation. Of course, now the habit is going to be, oh, I really enjoyed that. Let me continue doing that instead of your habit of, let me go home and let me spend quality time with the family, which is good and makes you feel good. But now you've chosen something else purely because it makes you feel good.
Yeah, I think, yeah, it definitely comes down to like a confirming bias, kind of like, you, by engaging in that and doing what feels good rather than what is good, then you're confirming that own bias within yourself, that like, oh wait, because it feels good all the time and I keep engaging in it, then you kind of flip the ideas in your mind that the thing that feels good is what's good. but it's actually not. You know what I mean? So you kind of like sabotage and brainwash yourself into thinking that it's the opposite way around when it isn't. And I think unless you have some sort of like canon event, like I mentioned earlier, it can be very hard to get out of that, you know. And I think again, for the eighth time, it comes back to that thing of self introspection of why are you telling yourself or why are you trying to convince yourself so much that the thing that feels good is supposed to be the thing that is good? What is it like? Well, you know, why and how? And when did you start feeling this way and why? Who are the people that are confirming that? Why are you confirming it for yourself internally as well? You know? So yeah, no, I would completely agree with that. I love that saying. I really do. I'm gonna start saying it a lot. I'm taking that from you. I'm taking that. I'm taking
Well, I
that.
mean, we both feed off inspiration here, you know, like you are a big inspiration to me and you are a naturally an inspiring person. In inspiration, you know, a lot of people, inspiration and motivation, people often need other people to bring that along or rely, you know, it's hard to just build motivational inspiration by your own self. And I love, it's like a saying or a quote that I hear quite around is waiting for inspiration is like waiting for a bus that broke down. Inspiration only comes when you start walking. When you start doing the action and start your journey, that's when you start feeling more motivated, more inspired, you know, because you start seeing things fall into place. How was that for you, you know, picking that up? I know you wanted your life to change and, you know, grow and take on these businesses and take on the career and the degree, but there has to be a level that you had to be like, okay, it's me, myself, and I've got inspired. How do you go along that?
I think you definitely have to figure out a starting point, right? And maybe also finding someone that you can align with. But the key thing there is to not confuse your life for their life, right? So, for example, if you look up to, or if somebody like Bill Gates has a life that you want to live like, right? Or has a body that you want to replicate, then you kind of need to do like a side by side comparison of like, okay, what have they done, especially at that stage in your life? Like map out their life, their lifetime, and map out yours. Pin the points. Like, okay, I'm 23 now. When they were 23, what were they doing, or when did they start? If you're starting earlier than them, you've already won, and that should already be inspiration because you can get to where they were. Let's say at 43, 20 years earlier, right? So that's like, for example, one way to do it. But when I say the key thing there is also to remember not to then try replicate it because your life and your circumstances are very different from that person that you want to become like or whose life you kind of want to land within the ballpark of, right? Like you should be very critical and very careful when it comes to making those comparisons. And I think once you have somebody who inspires you to push and like you said you start walking instead of waiting for the bus, then the wheel starts to turn and the momentum starts to build up. And once those things become intrinsically a part of you, when they're internally a part of you, then it makes building onto the next thing even better and better and better. And once you have that momentum of inspiration, you'll find that you very rarely you're not going to be looking at that person as frequently of like, okay, well, what were they doing when they were 25 now? Because you've been doing it for 2 years. You've adapted their 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 skills and their habits into your own life and you have now made it your own. So you don't always have to look back and be like, okay, now I'm 27. What did he do when he was 27? Like that process starts to fall away. And that's where you kind of start to put your inspiration into your own character. You know, I think for me, at least, that's what I did. Of course, there's many other ways, and I'd say that people should try find different sources of other ways to find inspiration. But for me, that was what I did. I looked at someone like I looked at John Cena actually, physique wise, and I was like, okay, what did he do? Blah 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 blah. For example, obviously, and allegedly. So John Cena, please don't sue us. Allegedly, he's taken steroids, right? So I now know that just because I want to look or land in the ballpark of what he looks like, my life and my beliefs aren't taking steroids. So I'm not going to do that, but I'm still going to work 10 times harder to get as close to that as I possibly can. You get what I'm saying? But yeah, just to sum up everything that I was saying, I think very much taking habits that exist in other people, internalizing them for yourself, building on that, and then using your own momentum to carry and pushing you forward. Because once you've done the work and once you have evidence that you can do it already, then that's where the inspiration comes from and not from that other person anymore.
It's brilliant comparing, you know, I love when you're talking about comparison because it brings up another topic on that of people often work against each other. Everyone is in this competitive state of I'm better than you, I'm better than you, I'm better. I get in the sense of sports or your career, like that's got how it's got to be. Unfortunately, it's the strongest survive in that type of outcome. But when it comes to self-development and growing with people, I don't know why it's always people versus each other and not people versus the problem. If I want to grow and you want to grow, why are we now going to make it a butt heads and be like, I'm growing better than you are, I'm doing more than you are, instead of, okay, let's do it together, like you said, and kind of map out and make a process. I think people take things so personally, and this kind of comes back again to that their own limitations. But people these days kind of just need to be better at supporting one another when it comes to growth. I love that you can be someone that is inspiring and you offer things for like your insight, your IP. You give it for the greater cause, not for a malicious way. But people out there kind of take a personal growth as this is me flaunting to you that I'm better than you.
100%, 100,000%. And that's actually also another pet peeve of mine is I don't like when other people compare themselves in a malicious manner of like saying like because I'm doing this, you can't chat to me in any type of way, or you can't even think of comparing yourself to me because that's only relative to the thing that you're focusing on, right? So like if you say, for example, that you want to self-improve yourself physically, just because you're doing really well physically doesn't mean that that other person isn't doing very well financially. And they can reverse that on you and say, like, okay, cool, like you have a six pack, but I just bought myself a new car. When did you do that? And that's when it becomes toxic because then now each person or both of those people in that situation are now only doing those things to to beat the other person. And the whole term of self-improvement gets taken away because now you're not self-improving, you're improving for someone else. And that's a very weird thing to do, very weird way to live your life, in my opinion, in my humble opinion. It's a very weird way to live your life of, again, like you said, doing things for other people or doing things because you think that, I need to be better than that person. There's nothing wrong with friendly competition, not at all. Like there's really nothing wrong. If I say, Sabian, dude, let's do 100 push-ups and we'll get $100. That's friendly competition for sure. But now if I'm diminishing you and your character and the type of person that you are to make myself feel better, what self improvement am I engaging in? None, zero. It's stupid. It's so dumb. So I completely share that opinion with you that like I think people definitely need to focus more on filling other people's cups. Like if you're in a position that somebody else wants to be in, and you know that you can help them, or you feel some sort of inherent obligation to do that, then you should. Don't ignore it and just be like, oh, nah, you'll figure that out yourself because you'll never be like me. No, bro, help them, give them a guide. If somebody wants to know an eating plan, tell them what you did. You know that, yeah, yeah, yeah. I think it's a human thing to help other people, and I think if you ignore that, it's a very, yeah, very inhumane trait to have.
I had this on the other podcast, as you're saying now. I think as humans, our nature is to serve. And I get that from Jay Shetty. I have adopted that value, but it's also always been within me. I know that we've often had deep, meaningful conversations with several people, and we always offer our cup and the overflow to give to others. And something that got me thinking, in your retrospective that you're saying, I think with the growth part, some people also interpret it wrong in terms of I mean, me and you do it. I've seen on our social media, we post things that try and motivate, on a story, on a post, with a good caption, a good quote. And some people take that as like, oh, look at this guy, he thinks he's so much better. It also comes down to interpretation, I guess. But again, that comes, I guess, to the limitations of themselves. But I can imagine people have now, friendship groups changes, people come and approach you, some ask for help, some batter you. How do you deal with that, that flow of, okay, let me respond and not react to the people that think this is just a show or think that it's not who I am?
Yeah, it's a difficult dichotomy to deal with, like, being faced with those two like opposite ends of reactions that you receive. Like, because receiving the love is cool, right? And it's nice. It's like it's validation that like, okay, I'm not just posting this for people to see. I'm posting it and it's touching someone's heart. That's a really nice thing. But it's a really terrible thing when somebody misinterprets your actions or the reason why you're doing something, and then even worse, then they diminish you for doing that thing. Do you know what I mean? But I think again, it goes back to that whole thing of that person is probably projecting, because if they think that you're posting something to put yourself on a hierarchy or put yourself on a pedestal or on a moral high ground, then that's probably something that they would do. That's why they're saying that, because they post things to make other people feel like shit about themselves or make other people feel bad because they're not doing the same things that they're doing. So I think it really comes down to drowning out the noise of what is the reason that you're doing this thing. And if people are aligning with that reason, then that's what you should focus on. And those are the people that you should be speaking to. The other people who have their own insecurities or their own ways of interpreting things in a negative way, in a way that you didn't mean, push them to the sideline, not even get them out the stadium. Nobody cares what they have to say because it's not for them. It's not for them, unfortunately. And also just don't take it personally. Don't take it personally because um, if somebody's telling you something about yourself that isn't a true reflection of yourself, and you know yourself, you are aware of your internal, the way that you think, your motives, your beliefs, then that thing or them battering you for it holds no meaning. There's this thing that's been popping up a lot on social media where people are quoting Rick from Rick and Morty, where he says, "Your boos mean nothing to me because I've seen what makes you cheer." It's that's exactly it. It means nothing that you're coming at me for this thing because I know what makes you happy. And those things don't make me happy. So why would I give you energy? Get out of here, bro. Vi, leave. We don't care what you have to say. Carry on charging the people that are taking it in a good light.
It's spectacular because what you're saying is something I'm still coming in terms of, I don't do well with some criticism and judgments, but if my values and the things I am doing is serving myself and serving my purpose and what I enjoy and makes me happy, why should I care about what other people think? I've done better than what I was
Exactly.
last year. Last year I cared too much about people, but this year I've really got into a point of it's my life. I'm happy with what I'm doing. I'm not bringing harm to anyone. Anyone thinks I'm bringing harm to them, then surely, it's clearly you don't know me enough or well enough. Like I don't know you well enough that I can cause harm from this or what I'm
Mm.
doing. If you're putting good things out in the world and people take it as a bad thing, that's not on you. You
True,
know,
true, true.
um, it's something the whole self growth and the whole basically everything we've spoken about. It's brought me to a thought of from your experience, from mine, when we have bad things happen, we decide change. And, at least ours was chosen. But a lot of people, they wait until something bad happens to make a change. Why do you think it's like that in society that something has to go wrong in order for us to fix it? Why don't we just be the best from the start?
I think people definitely view it as too black and white of good and bad, right? Is just because things are, and also they also confuse uh, mediocre or okay for good, right? Like you think that you're engaging in something good when it's really just not even like a good thing. It's just an average thing, right? Like you confuse that. But also because you're viewing it too black and white of like, no, this nothing bad has happened, so it's definitely good. And then when the bad thing happens, you're like, it's definitely bad. Then you kind of are you oversimplifying that dichotomy. And I think most times people wait for things to go bad because that's the only way that they see it. That's the only way that they see it. Like it's again that thing of like things are so stagnant, and then as soon as things aren't the same and it dips, that's the only time you realize. But you're not realizing that as good as things can be, they can be better. There's also that concept that exists. There's good, there's bad, but there's better, there's great, there's bad, there's terrible. It's a spectrum. So I think it's important to kind of like span those ideas out a little bit more and understanding that again, just because you're comfortable in a situation and things feel good, doesn't mean that they can't be even better by cutting out certain things or engaging in certain things. But yeah, I think it's just a black and white issue, not race.
I get that. I get that. Yeah, no, of course. Um, but moving on to a different pasture of from away from the self growth, your self growth has now helped you develop into your career. And like you said, you're not sure about your degree if you want to go into law, but you have two other businesses. Speak about that, like how such at a young age, you got that drive, you got that discipline, you knew what you wanted, where the failure came along, where the success, you did it and you are doing it. Speak more about that. I'm intrigued. I'm sure the viewers are intrigued.
Yeah. So like the thing is, when I started the self improvement thing, and I'll move away from that over into what you asked now, but when I started with the self improvement thing, a big thing, a part of that was realizing what my goals are, right, and how to achieve those things. So that was also something that I very much like made sure to educate myself on. The self improvement came in where it was like I was uninformed about the way things work in the world, right, in terms of hard work and in terms of how to be financially stable and whatnot. I'm not saying I am yet, but that's what I'm working towards, right? And that's where like I kind of shifted over into like the business career, financial aspect of my life. So for example, in 2021, like during COVID, I had like a bit of money that my parents had given me, and I was listening to a podcast, very uneducated thing that I did, but it worked out fortunately in the end. And I invested all of that money into like Bitcoin and Ethereum, just those two. And um, it grew like quite exponentially, like more money than I've ever seen myself like ever have in my entire life. And that was kind of the thing that got the gears working of like, okay, well, I want more. I want to do bigger things. The fact that I clearly have the ability, even though it was just on a whim and I heard it in a podcast and I just happened to be in the right place at the right time. The fact that that is a possibility that you can take something small and build it into something big kind of then struck that entrepreneurial business nerve inside of me to develop myself to become better in that sphere of life, and very unfortunately I did lose some of that money because I didn't understand how markets worked and whatnot, but I still had quite a good chunk. And just to touch on quickly, when that happened, it was also part of the reason why I just like was living on this cloud that I mentioned earlier, was because I think I developed subconsciously this like arrogance of like, oh no, like I know how to do this now and I know that I'll be fine. So you said I can swear, right? So fuck everything else. Like it doesn't matter. I don't need to put effort into this or that. But that was a subconscious thing, you know. But yeah, I overcame that, and then I came back to the thing that I was mentioning of developing my business acumen. Like, let me start a business. Let me carry on investing. Let me actually learn about how this stuff works. Granted, I'm not an expert. I'm still not. Like, I barely have time to give. Now, especially to give time to these things, but it's important to always be constantly learning to if that's what you want to do, to build up, right? Because these things are ever changing, these things are ever evolving. Like things are never ever going to be just one way. It's very rare for that to happen. There's technology that comes out, there's people that are born that will create things that don't even exist yet. But the thing that you need to do is to develop that muscle of like, okay, how do I adapt, and also how am I learning and receiving information that will help me and benefit me or boost me higher in this entrepreneurial realm. And that's kind of what I've been doing over the last, what, like 2 years, So in terms of business, so I run a digital marketing agency with one of my friends. And it started off as just that, but now we want to scale over into e-commerce store management. So going to people who have online businesses and managing the entire back end of their store. So making sure that orders are fulfilled, making sure that we're coming with different suggestions of what type of how do you do your order fulfillment, what systems are you using to track, things of that nature. And it is quite a taxing thing. But yeah, I must say though, like the digital marketing agency space was like not even something that like I had any interest in. But again, like I said, because I tried something, it ended up working out quite well. Now fast forward 2 years and we're in this position that we're in now, you know? But yeah, the thing that kind of pushed me to like carry on building and going into this realm of business and studying something that has a lot of business foundation to it, was because I just wanted more for myself. I want bigger for myself.
It's great. Wow. This is what I'm talking about inspiring. Like, dude, at the ripe age of 23, it is a mindset that our generation doesn't understand as much as statistics and studies say that we are buying less, we are focusing harder because we have some sort of higher pressure. I mean, like what Alex Hormozy says of it's never been easier to get rich with, technology, AI, but it's also never been easier to be lazy. You have the path of both. And something that brought me onto it's like you've done so well with your time, and 23 is super young, even though we may not think it or feel it. We have the thinking of like we got no time left. It's still young, and what you've done in time is great because no one that doesn't have anything important to do wastes time. And you've clearly taken those steps in the right moments, like put the research in, tried, put the effort in. Like you said, half of these things you're just in the right place in the right time. I don't agree with because you set out the actions to lead yourself there. Yes, was it like the right
Okay, yeah.
podcast? Was it the right video you watched? But you put yourself in that position, which is great. But with that, you know, how does it come down to the time management of doing all these different things, of like what's your routine of managing it? Because a lot of people complain that they don't have time and that, oh, I'll do this another time. How do you manage that all with such a busy schedule and also doing the self-improvements and constantly learning and being who you are?
Yeah, it really comes down to, and the latter of what I'm about to say is, I think, something that people aren't always honest about, but it comes down to structure and sacrifice, to be completely honest with you. I think many people hear this concept of work-life balance, and I think it does exist, but I think it only exists in a certain stage in your life, right? Once you've laid the foundations, once things are in motion, then you can focus on work-life balance. But when you're still building out those foundations, you're still learning, you're still trying to build and establish something. Work-life balance is not a thing, not at all, you know. And that's where the sacrifice part comes in. Sacrificing certain things, time with people that you care about, events that happen, important events in your life. That's at least for me how it's manifested. And how I've managed to have so much time to do all of these things. Like when I did my first 2 or 3 75 hards, literally my life structure was go to school, come back, gym, work, go to bed, and do the same thing over again. And then in between that, of course, it's like still tracking the calories, still making sure I'm hitting my protein goals. But you only have 24 hours in a day. For 7 of those hours, you're asleep. For another seven, you're at school. What, you only have 10 hours left in the day. That's eating, that's doing the extra work, whatever, whatever, whatever. So that's why I say sacrifices, because you're not going to be able to fit all of these things into your life when you're still in the building phase. When you're still trying to get started or still trying to understand things, you're not going to be able to then, like, okay, at 9 o'clock, go out on a Saturday and chill with the boys and get fucked up, and then wake up in the morning and still do recovery, and then think that you're going to still go to the gym, you're still going to build a business, you're still going to study for your exams. It's not realistic to me, right? Like, this is from my perspective. So if anyone disagrees, fair enough, but this is just how, like I said, manifested for me. So and then of course structuring those things is, how are you dedicating your time to each of these things? Because even just that, some may disagree, but going to the gym, focusing on school, and building a business, that's only three things, right? But the effort and the time that you have to put in has to be structured so meticulously. Like, you really do have to break it up. Like, ask yourself, how many hours in the day do I have left, right? If you only have uh, what's an easy number to use? If you only have 12 hours left in the day, then you need to break it up. 4 hours schoolwork, 4 hours work, 4 hours for the rest of your stuff. And to make sure that you get the most out of that structure, you also have to be really efficient. You have to learn efficiency of, like, okay, I'm spending 4 hours on this, but I'm not doing anything. Why? Change your systems, change your workflow patterns, etc., etc., etc. So I know I rambled a bit, but yeah, the two most important things, or the dichotomy that I see, is structure and sacrifice. To be completely honest, that's how you manage your time, in my opinion.
Never worry about rambling. I mean, you are the guest here that I want the insight and the value. I mean, you bring so much to myself and to hopefully the viewers. I mean, it's a brilliant way you put it in, and like the structure, and it's a really laid out process. People don't often, when you said the 7 hours of sleeping, 7 hours of school, 10 hours to do the rest, or etc., however you put it, you actually look at it and it sounds like a shit ton of time. Like, that's a lot of time to do something. But now where the problem with the time is how you're spending it. Like you said, you can't go to the boys and go drink, or you can't go out, and then you do have to keep realistic. I think people aren't realistic with themselves. They think they want to be Superman, but then they want to sloth on the couch and not do anything. You can't be both. You can't have the best of both worlds. And I've had one of the episodes previously, I had a talk about work-life balance, and it was an entrepreneur who said it doesn't exist. It only exists at some stage later on when the businesses work. So I think people do misinterpret work-life balance as this everlasting thing, when work-life balance is only mentioned in the beginning. It's never mentioned at the end. People always
Yeah.
want to do work-life balance when you're supposed to be working. Like, there's too much of a crave for freedom too early on. You're supposed to sacrifice so much time in the start so that you have the freedom later on. You don't want to have the freedom now and then have to be tied to a clock later on in life when your clock is running out. Which
Hmm.
brings me to a great thing. I think it comes down to like this promise that you make to yourself and trusting yourself to do the things you say you're going to do. People say, "Oh, I'm going to go gym tomorrow," or "I'm going to go eat healthy," but then they don't do it. And you're breaking that trust, like you're kind of snipping at your own trust with a relationship with yourself. how did you build trust with yourself besides just repeating the habits? Like what, there must have been a conversation there or a realization, a epiphany.
Yeah. Um, it came down to being realistic and being as realistic and as objective as I possibly could with myself at that stage in my life. Like, you know, I use fitness goals as the easiest one, or as an example, because you can tell yourself all the time and say like, yo, like I need to go to the gym, or you can go to the gym, but then you can negate all of that work by not focusing on your diet. You know, so I think you kind of need to firstly realize the steps that it takes to achieve those things, right? And then asking yourself like, what are the things objectively that give and take away from that? So with the gym, for example, you can go to the gym, but like, are you are you working out efficiently? Okay, fine, you are working out efficiently, but you also want to lose weight. Are you eating in a calorie deficit? You know, and that's where you kind of get like this validation of the things that you're doing, right? Because if you're not doing the things that you say you need to be doing, then it's because you're not doing them properly. And if you're not seeing the results, then objectively and realistically, you're not doing them properly. If you are going to the gym 7 days a week, you're killing it in there, you sore, but you're eating like shit all the time, then unfortunately you're not going to see any results. It doesn't mean that just because you did one thing great and you didn't do the other, that that one great thing is going to outweigh the negatives. That's not true. That's not how it works, you know? And that's kind of like the conversation I had with myself, even with this whole like fitness situation, is like objectively, like as much as I want to have McDonald's, like in this scape that we're talking about, does eating the McDonald's take away from it? Am I eating McDonald's every single day? Am I having it once a week? Okay, if I am having it once a week, how does it affect my calorie intake? Does it put me in a surplus or a deficit? Okay, I'm still in a deficit, so then I can do that, but not just do it because I feel like it and just on a whim. I'm like, okay, no, I need to get McDonald's because I'm fucking craving McDonald's. It's okay. It's okay if you are. But again, remember you have goals in place and you need to be realistic and objective about how to get those goals achieved.
Yeah, you are spinning there because it's like you can't do something positive and then make an excuse to do something negative because you did the positive thing. It isn't how it works, you know?
Hmm.
Two wrong
Hmm.
things don't make a right. It's the same for one right thing, one wrong thing doesn't make you right. The severity of it is not realistic. Um,
Yeah.
but with that coming, what do you leave to some of the people, to like process, not even just process, what do you leave to people that are willing or wanting to make these changes and these steps? Like, what would you tell someone, or even, I know we are young, but what do you tell your younger self, the one that was partying and drinking? What do you tell those type of people that are dying to be someone different but don't know where to go or how to do it or how to follow that feeling?
Hmm. 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 If in 5 years, the version of yourself, do you think that you will be the version of yourself in 5 years if you continue to engage with your life the way that you currently are? I think that very much sums up every single thing that we've spoken about. Is when you view yourself in 5 to 10 years, is and that thing that you want to achieve, are the patterns and habits that you're engaged in and doing right now gonna send you in that direction? If the answer is yes, well done, bro. You're on your way to living the life that you have in mind. But if the answer is no, then what's the starting point? And then it goes back, it trickles back down, full circle moment. What are the habits you're engaging in? Self introspect. Who are you surrounding yourself with? What are you doing? What are the goals that you even want to achieve if you even have any? And if you don't, there's a perfect starting point. What do you want to achieve? How do you become the person that you want to become? Follow those steps and change your life.
So would you mainly say it comes from a huge self-awareness? That's like the first part you got to look, is realizing what you want, who you are.
Yeah, definitely, 100%. But self awareness is a bit of a difficult thing because there's many people who are not self aware. And there's also many people who think they're self aware who still aren't self aware, you know? So I think maybe a better way to phrase it would be become aware of what you want to become. Rather do that. Become aware of what you want to become. And then that's where you start to foster the current self awareness. Because then now you're starting to look inside yourself. You're starting to see, like, okay, what am I doing? How do I interact with people and whatnot and whatnot and whatnot and whatnot? So I think, yeah, once you are aware of who you want to be, then everything else just follows suit.
That's great. You got me thinking on two great things there of one, It's what is the example you're setting? Like if everyone else around you, would they be proud to be around you and be proud of the person you are by your examples that you set and the habits you do? Are they happy to be like, you know what, I trust you to take control of my life. I'm a copy you. Like, would the world be better if they copied your character? And
Ooh,
then a
perfect.
great thing is like you were saying on the awareness, people often, I loved when you said people like to think they're self-aware and then they're not. People love to tell themselves and others what they want to hear, not what they need to hear. You know, no one wants to be
Mm,
honest. Like it's such a simple thing though, because why try and protect this pride and this ego? I think there has to be some sort of pride and ego death in everyone's life to realize we're not all that important in the grand scheme of life. Like we're all gonna die. Everything we leave and do on this earth will be remembered only for a few years. You know, names will be forgotten, what you've accomplished, unless you have this. Even companies and stuff, they'll fade over time. They'll never know. It will be the next CEO that's known. So I think your scoping perspective of what you do now will not last forever. So make the most of it with the time you have. I don't know your opinions on
true,
that.
true. Yeah, I think um, very much we've been speaking a lot about, or at least I have, about like the future version of yourself and whatnot. But I think that's obviously now in the context of achieving things and becoming a better person. But I think in the grand scheme of things, it's very important to not um, make that the center of your life, of you're always constantly thinking about the future, right? In certain contexts, 100%, that's correct. That I do that in certain contexts in my life of in the future, what decision do I make to make the future happen like this, fine. But you also are alive right now. There's so many good things happening in the world right now that you should go and experience. Like there's so many people in your life that you haven't given attention to that could become the best man at your wedding. There's love to be found. There's experiences to be had. There's happiness to enjoy. There's people to surround yourself with in the current moment. And I think that's kind of the thing that will like, even though you won't be remembered in 2 or 3 generations, but it doesn't matter because you won't be there. You should matter about where you are right now and what fulfills you and makes you happy now. Like don't focus too much on the future. Like, yes, it's necessary, like I say, in some situations, but for the most part, dude, you're here. You're on a spinning rock. You have the opportunity to be alive. You wake up every single morning to feel the sun on your skin, to breathe in air, to touch grass, to shake people's hands, to make people smile. And that's the things that you should make, you know, the most important thing right now. I feel like fulfill yourself, like fulfill your soul, because you're a soul having a human experience, not a human having a soulful experience.
That is so beautiful and so magnificent. And you brought it on as we really do take those things for granted. We are so focused on something to come that we forget, the beauty of waking up, of having a slow morning, the beauty of hearing a loved one's voice, the beauty of, just hearing a bird chirp. Like we forget how much the presence matters and how beautiful it is. And the lovely thing is it doesn't ask for attention. You don't a flower that blooms doesn't scream, "Hey, look at me." When the sun rises, it doesn't do anything magnificent. You just take notice of it. Like, be the present. Future, it's great for the planning and everything, but you are so right that we often lose touch of the time we have now. And that's what people's probably misconception of presence is it's kind of showing the
Mhm.
value you are giving to what you are currently experiencing. But yeah,
100%.
well, it's coming to the end of this podcast, and man, it's been so, your insights, it's been eye-opening. Like you always blow my mind with some of the value and the insight and the things you learned and your experiences. Coming to the closing thoughts and final takeaways of the episode, what are some things you want to leave behind with people and like a quote or motto to let people know that, life isn't all that bad and
Yeah,
that you've been there and you felt that?
100%. I think the first one is be you're only living the life that you have now through your own eyes, right? I will never ever know 100% what it's like to live the world through your eyes. Same vice versa, and it's the same for every other 8 billion people on this planet, right? So you can only do the things that are good for you. You can only do the things that will fulfill you, and I think that people kind of need to um, take on a bit of selfishness and ruthlessness in making sure that you're not letting other people influence the decisions that you make in your life. Don't let that happen. Of course, there's negative selfishness, but I want to bring up this term positive selfishness. I know it's a bit of an oxymoron, but I don't care. I'm making it a thing. Have it. Bring in some positive selfishness, dude. Make decisions that make you happy. Don't always focus too much about how it affects the next person, especially if you think it's something that's going to make you happy. And a lot of people will say that's selfish because you're not thinking about the next person. But I'm not saying make a selfish decision to take away from another person. I'm saying make a selfish, don't make a decision that doesn't take away from you. Make yourself happy. Do the things that you want to do in life. If you want to go to the Northern Lights right now and pack a bag tomorrow, go do that. Be selfish. Doesn't matter. Just go do what you want to do. Do the things that fulfill you. And secondly, the last thing that I want to say is find a goal in life and align yourself so much with that goal and work so hard towards that goal that it would be almost impossible that you don't land upon that goal. That's an Alex Hormozy quote, by the way, if you guys know Alex Hormozy. Yeah, pick a goal in life, work so intensely and so hard towards that goal that it would be almost impossible that you don't achieve it.
Wells, thank you so much for your time, your effort, all your insight, all your powerful, you know, experiences. And thank you for sharing and just taking the time to truly give back to hopefully the people and the viewers to inspire some change like you did for me. And yeah, guys, thank you for episode 8.
Cheers, guys. Thanks for tuning in.